Hello and welcome back. Self-Mastery Labs. So this channel is a place where I am able to push for self-mastery day in and day out, 5 days a week. It's really raw, unedited, ground up, foundations building. I started January 1st, 2026, so I'm going at this from the perspective of most people don't ever find out how to really, or feel really fulfilled, like they figured out how to pursue everything they wanted to in their lives. I'm one of those, so I'll speak for myself. I've always felt like I want to do this or that, or I want to pursue these things, I want to achieve these things, I want to experience these things, I want to grow in certain ways, and figuring out how to do that while life is just happening and you're a lot of times just trying to catch up with it, or sometimes stay on top of the wave, but most of the time catch up with it, how fast it's moving. And especially the more that you try to do, the more that it's just something that keeps slipping through your hands and you can't sort of seem to get to a place where you're just flowing, and really feeling content. And I use the word content carefully. I think being content and you can be content, but you can be wanting and driving at the same time. And that's what I'm trying to find here. So to quickly go over where I'm at now, after the first few weeks, it's been a lot of figuring out, okay, where do I need to start if I'm really wanting to completely change my life and optimize it in every way, leave no stone unturned, leave nothing behind. Not to say I won't get to a point where I have to make choices. That's already happening with my time. But I want all those things to emerge where I've got a little more agency over what I choose to spend my time on and whatnot. And I think taking this time to sort of map out all the things and then really zero in on the most important has been an awesome process. And there's some things that are emerging that I see as really important and exciting in this process. But so I started with going, okay, here, eventually I came to 6 things which were, asking myself, what do I believe in? 2, what's my why? So why do I continue? Why do I try? Should tie into my belief. 3, what do I want? So what are all the things that I want? This took me a little while and it's still evolving. And that's the thing with all this. It's like even my belief, I am now looking at it every day and rewriting it, but it's totally imperfect. So, and the wants will change too, but that's got to be built in as part of the system. Number 4, who do I want to be as I pursue my wants, and my why and my belief, then 5, I created a new one after a weekend, which was like, what emotions do I want to wield? And I'm super interested in getting to that point, because like the emotions, some of the great emotions, it's not that we have control over all of them. Shit hits us in life, and we can feel a certain way about it that's not in our control. But we can also absolutely take certain actions, put ourselves in certain scenarios that are going to up the probability of generating certain kinds of emotions. So I'm interested in exploring that and trying to choose, from knowing that, okay, these kinds of people that I want to spend my time with, that generates a certain kind of emotion because they're a certain way or they have certain qualities that generate those emotions in me, or certain things that I do, I started to notice I get emotions and feelings out of doing those things. So to try to sort of understand where I have control and where I don't, a little better. And then finally, 6 is, after doing all that work and spending time with all that, building in systems that, and rules and regulations and habits that will consistently, day in and day out, chip away at achieving those things, specifically the wants that I've written out, because that's the physical stuff that I'm dealing with. But those will or should affect my why and my ultimate bigger picture belief system. That's the gist of where I'm at now, which I can't even imagine where I'll be in 2 more weeks if I can stick with this. You know, that's the other thing to this, is like keeping this chain going has definitely not been easy just at, you know, get approaching 2 full weeks, which is basically like 5 days out of every week. I take Saturdays and Sundays off. And so that's where I'm at. That's where I've come to, that structure of 6. And I've done a lot of work in there, things that I've like written out, you know, in my journals, you know, on that. So there's a lot of work in there. And what I want this to be is I'm just calling it a lecture series now. I'm free. I'm totally free to like explore and really honor effort. Like, I gotta just keep pushing. Like, if I feel, there have been days where I feel like I'm just talking and not sure where I'm going. Well, I don't know exactly where I'm going. I definitely want to get to that place in life where I can go to bed at night and I can go, hell yeah, like I can sleep well. I feel like I gave it everything I had. And I mean, it comes down to that. And I want to be like that at the end of my life, man. It's giving me goosebumps, because it's like just to feel that, to know, like, it's peace, right? I'm going to write that down, because, you know, what do I believe in? What's my why? What's my purpose? I think I'm going to change the question to what's my purpose in some ways, because, you know, I think finding peace is something worthy. I think creating is something worthy. These are things that I've been thinking about a lot, but I mean, imagine at the end of your life, you're 110 years old, and you're lying on your bed, and it's about to be it, you know, and you just have that, you know, you're just happy, you're at peace with just. And maybe you can find peace whatever happened, that you never figured this stuff out. You did your best, but you just could never get a hold of anything. You're being dragged around by life, and you're trying to catch up the whole time. You never get a grip, never get a good grip. You're just fucking, you know, just like tossed around. I'm sure some of you guys feel like that. I feel like that on some days, you know, where I just cannot, you know, I'm holding on and it's just flinging me everywhere, you know, life is, and I'm just trying to get on top to where I can feel like I've got that, now let me go here, and I've got that, now let me go here. It's like, it's fucking hard. And the thing that I think that's clear is that, you know, we play this balancing game of, you know, sometimes we've cleared everything and we're like, okay, what do I do? And when we don't make these conscious choices, well, sometimes we clear everything and we're like, oh, I'm gonna watch Netflix, or I'm gonna scroll, you know? And is that what you want? At the end of the day, are you gonna be happy with that? Or if you were like, all right, I'm clear, where should I go? Let me think about this, let me put the effort in. All right, I'm gonna go over here and then, you know, maybe put the effort in, do some work. And maybe when you wanna relax and scroll and watch Netflix or whatever, and like choose that deliberately with intention, not just mindlessly you know, pulled around and maybe not even know it is my choice, you know, is why I'm struggling. But I thought a lot about the Sisyphus recently, you know, rolling that boulder up the hill. It's like, especially with how hard it is just to commit to coming on camera here, you know, for 30 minutes to an hour and trying to push all this forward and then spending the time outside of this that I need, which isn't even that long, 30 minutes or so that I can spare here and there to move these concepts forward behind the scenes too is unbelievably difficult. And then, you know, I can only imagine how it's going to get. And as I continue to try to change habits that have been ingrained my entire life. So it's incredibly challenging. And I've been thinking about like, you push that boulder all the way up. So I'm going to do this to know that it's probably just going to roll down the other side of the hill. And so, you know, that takes me back to just continually looking at the purpose. And I want to stick with that a little bit today, that idea of, you know, going back to, you know, those pillars, those foundations when you really want to change. And I think it's, what do you believe in is a big question. But maybe the more important question is, what is your purpose? You know, what's my purpose? What ultimately, like, what is my purpose? Because again, it's like I keep feeling this, you know, well, especially when things get hard, when you're trying to change, you know, and they just get really difficult. You feel like you keep getting knocked back. You want to revert back to the ways of being that are easy or that you know. And it requires such energy. It requires such fight. And at the end of the day, it's like, how am I going to fight so hard all day, every day, where really I am giving it everything. So I'm I'm thinking through everything. Like, you know, I'm like just wanting to do my best, you know, where I can and when it's important. And like, if I see I need to change, then I do. You know, but so why? And what's going to give me that energy to persist and sustain it over time? And how do I find something that keeps fueling that? So it's like, if I could believe in a purpose, but if I'm intelligent enough, it's very hard. It seems to be very hard to actually like, I don't want to trick myself, you know. You could do that, right? And maybe people are. It's like, even if you even think of some of the greats, right? They talk a lot about, in sports or whatever, they talk about Michael Jordan a lot, you know, about how competitive he was. And it was his competitiveness, this burning competitiveness, that he was naturally talented at basketball, but his desire to win just fueled him to put forth all that massive energy day in and day out, you know, the will that he had to just keep improving himself and finding a way to win. You know, that all comes from its core is a desire, its core is an energy that's like, it pushes a body that may not be designed for something to do something and then adapt. Like, it's the key, it's the source. It's like, so, okay, but if would it be just as powerful if you then became aware of that maybe it's something that's not very deep at all. Maybe it's something that's actually kind of, you know, petty or something? Like what if your desire to win comes from something that's like, you feel like you're not enough in the eyes of your parents or something. They won't love you if you aren't the greatest. And that's the thing that's actually driving you to be great. What if it actually comes back to that? And then you look at that and that is the closest to truth that you can get. And you decide, well, I get that now. And are you still fueled by that? Can you still, on the one hand, understand that it's this thing that you could actually let go of? Because it's not necessarily, it doesn't fit into a nice little box of like a hero's journey, that your pursuits and your meaning and your sense of everything is because of, your desire to fill something that is missing, and then you're not going to you wouldn't be able to solve it that way anyway. That wouldn't actually ever solve what you were fighting so hard for. But maybe the exhaustion of that, that passion, that love that you're trying to seek so badly. I mean, maybe just the effort towards it, you don't even know. So let's say it's Michael Jordan in basketball, and that whole effort for him, it comes from something like that. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm using that as an example because it was the first thing that came to my mind. But let's say that's the, this person that we see in our, culture is this like unbelievable, the greatest of the great hero in that realm, and that his desire and push may have been like something like that. Well, the results are, and then maybe for him personally, it's still better than, it's an attempt, it's trying, it's still personally probably will lead him closer to working it out in the end and understanding that he maybe could have gone a different path to healing that, whatever. So it doesn't do any harm. And in fact, that effort in that positive way probably impacted the world in a better way, all in all, with people that are inspired and proof that these amazing things can be done at this high level. So all in all, it's fine, but it gets back to the point of like, I was bringing up about Sisyphus and like rolling that, boulder up the hill and only having it, roll down. Is just that, like, is it impossible to figure these things out? Like to really go, oh, that's really the purpose. That's the thing. Because ultimately, I suppose things would be just easy if you were just fueled. If you were just definite, if you were like, that's why I'm doing this, that it's, so to not know is hard, or have to try to generate it yourself, I still think is worthy. And it's like, so I think this has all been worth that exploration. Excuse me. But that's, so that's part of the process that I'm just like, I definitely want to go through. Like, and then, I am also building in for myself, the revisiting of this, so that it's constantly on my mind, not in a way that should pull from the actions that I'm taking day in and day out, and especially the really important things, but it's really, I feel for myself, it's really important to process these things, so it is, and that kind of connects me to like my own personal like spirituality with it, if you will, or that like kind of desire to feel like, well, I really did explore, I did as much as I could. Because not knowing for me and having to sort of figure out, what's what's the purpose, and then coming to things like, right before I turned this on, I started recording, I was thinking to create, and on the surface that sounds like, sure, of course, create, as a purpose, but it is like, if you go deeper with that, it is like, really like, what is the purpose? Like, what's the purpose here? And, getting your life to a place where you can actually create, it seems meaningful. It feels like you're then, you can choose a religion, you can choose a belief, that's, and you can say, I'm creating because I'm on board. I believe that I'm believing most likely some thing that's way higher than myself, or there's some intelligence that's higher than myself. I'm giving it all the benefit of the doubt. I have no way other than to try to keep my eyes open and my experiences going in my life, and to just assess and then do my best to interact, and also then to make choices and try to create based off of those things I'm seeing and feeling and moving through. And when you do that, because you can't know everything, you are taking a leap of faith. And so I'm going to write that down, leap of faith. Like a leap of faith, to make effort, leap of faith. I'll write that down. Leap of faith. I mean, you're taking a leap of faith. You really are. There's no guarantee of anything. I mean, I definitely, like, it's clear that on a smaller scale, any human can be confused about what they're seeing, right? What they're experiencing. A thing that's happening can look like something, and turns out that they were mistaken about it. It can be any number of examples. We know this on a smaller scale. So like, why couldn't it be on a larger scale? Whatever we're looking at and experiencing here as humans, like, that this couldn't be something just unexpected. and then, like this is all some experiment in some alien's, kid's bedroom or something, and it has very little meaning on this realm. Like our whole world, is, a lot of people talk about simulation theory, a lot of legitimate scientists, so imagine, this is just in some hard drive of like one entity, so that this immediate existence maybe is one among trillions, hundreds of trillions of, or more, and it's not anything special, and it could just be, which is why I think even the tiny it's probably just, it doesn't take anything away from us even thinking that, it just, because it's just scales, right? It's just so the things that I'm getting into here about like what drives you, energy, emotions, feelings, beliefs, like even on that scale, even if we were in some things hard drive, and it's a science experiment for that other entity. Well, it still doesn't mean that in the infinity of things that we're still not important, or that you don't make yourself important, and you don't have the ability to create. I think we still do. And so it's still, even facing that, how great is it that we still push the boulder up the hill like Sisyphus, and then we take the leap of faith? So that's where I'm at with my belief system that I've thought through, not been told like, hey, believe this, hey, go do this, be a part of this. And no, I'm going to have to do the work on my own. I'm going to have to think through all of this on my own. And at the end, for me, that's important. That I didn't just say, hey, oh yeah, here's what we do, here's what we think, here's what is. Great, let's listen to it all, let's take it in, and then let's, agree with it, not agree with it, go a different direction, but do it from a place of, I've unturned all these stones as best as I could. I did my work, I pushed the boulder up the hill, and I took the leap of faith. And for me, that's where I come to, is that I would rather take the leap of faith to think that even if we're some science experiment in some alien kid's bedroom and we're a simulation or what, and very tiny and might be turned off in a second, that I would still choose to take the leap of faith that there's some higher consciousness, some meaning that's way bigger than me, that's outside of it, that I can still go, I'm still gonna try to reach that. I'm just gonna get as close to it as I can. I'm gonna get to the edge of the inside of that PC that I'm in, that simulation. I'm gonna try to get to the edge to see if I can't, touch whatever else there is positively if I can. I'm gonna try to create in there as I can. And that's where I also thought of two other things just in exploring this, is the creation, where I think that's worthy, is it is sort of like, how crazy is that? Is it, if you are, and we know we're tiny, for a fact, no matter what, even if the universe is the boundary of everything, it's like, that's tiny what we are. And imagine if you can create within that at your small scale. That seems to be maybe a built-in purpose, a design that we can create. It's to the level that we can for on this planet is pretty huge, so that makes me think there may be a design that is leading to us to create that will, and then the other thing that I came to is peace, is that is a worthy pursuit through all this struggle, is to be at peace, even in the midst of struggle. So that was the other thing, peace, even through struggle. Peace. Create. All right. So I'm going to revise my belief a little bit. I'm going to add in somewhere in between what's my why to more what is my purpose. Because the why for me, what is my why, is hoping to find something that is just like, it just gets me. It would be fantastic if you could have something that you just, you pull a lever and you're just like, ready to go, full of energy. And I find myself getting philosophical whenever I ask myself, what's my why? I find myself going bigger and bigger and bigger in thought. It's not to say that I still believe where we're at now, and it'll be fucking cool to see where this goes in a couple weeks. But I've already started some of the daily habit stuff. I mean, I've changed my habits. Sleep times especially, I've been getting up at 5:30 for the last 2 weeks. That's very different from before, and having time in the morning. So I've got habits that I already have rolling that I'm gonna get more into when we get to the wants, when I get to my wants here. But and action items, and habit creation. But I can already see how like momentum and you know, even spending time on this, you know, question is sort of, it's starting a desire and a pull towards it even more. So I think at this stage, I am curious to see what these questions will lead to. Or if you can generate a why if you don't already have one that's like burning. Because I think most of us don't. I really think that, you know, if we did, I mean, we're a driven people for sure, but like the majority of us, you know, we're not the, you know, Elon Musk's and the Jeff Bezos's, and I'm not saying that I'm trying to be that. I'm trying to find a place that I'm at peace with, you know, a level that I'm at peace with, and it's probably not, I'm probably not, I have things that are important to me, like my kids, and spending a ton of time with them that are super important to me, or that are like my number one. So that would automatically knock me out from like probably creating, you know, past a certain amount of companies or businesses. But everybody's got their own with that. But yeah, I can already feel though the just sort of the etching in, the grooves starting to like go deeper and form. And it's like once they do, there's a certain kind of momentum that builds, which is pretty cool. Even despite like the hard days, which there have been. Yesterday I felt like, you know, terrible, and there's been a lot of things that have come up that were totally out of my control that I had to deal with that sort of prevented me from moving some things forward. But even despite that, it's like, as I keep going, it definitely, there's definitely momentum pulling. So, you know, seeing where like belief, purpose, and why changes, and if it actually can get to that point where it's very fueling, where the idea of it or the things that I'm thinking about with it are fueling, is something that I'm really curious about. Because otherwise it's like, again, you know, you go back to this such elusive question of like, why not just find the life of the most ease? You know, why not just really position yourself to just have, you know, maybe have less, you know, maybe experience less even, but enough, you know, and get yourself there that's not, and maybe that's where I will end up. But I'll only end up there through going through this, to asking myself these questions and toiling with them in front of this camera, you know? Or whether I do it in front of this camera or not, whether you do it, you know, wherever you do it, with people that you can talk to yourself, in your journals, like, this is, I think this is the work. These are the questions to really, like, spend the time. why are you taking the actions you're taking? Why are you molding yourself the way that you're molding yourself? Why are you exposing yourself to things that could potentially mold you in a way that you might not want to be molded when you have the choice? Sometimes you don't have the choice. But a lot of times, you abso-fucking-lutely do. And to really wrap your head around that, do you have to go to that job? What would happen if you didn't? Maybe you do have to. That's killing your soul. Is there no other way? Is there no other way to get your foot in, get a tiny, tiny grip on something else that you want to do in the spare hours that you have instead of watching Netflix or being on your phone? Can you find an hour a day? And then maybe position yourself to where maybe you can get lessen the hours at that job or start to find your way out of it? The people in your life, like, is there a way to start, if somebody's negatively affecting you, is there a way to get away from them? If they're positive, if people that you don't have a lot of interaction with, but you love being around them and you want more, is there a way to spend more time with them? But definitely spending time, I think, you know, the theme today really is, it's, you know, beating a dead horse on this is what we're doing, or what I'm doing, but like, I don't think it can be overstated. Figure things out. Spend the time, ask yourself the important questions, the bigger questions in life. And of course, take action, a lot of action. Thanks for watching.